Hi, I'm Marc Loftus, editor of Post Magazine, and I'm here at NAB in New York 2023, and I'm with Dell Technologies' Tom Burns. He's the CTO of Media and Entertainment Americas. Tom, welcome.
Nice to be here, Mark. Thank you.
Always good to catch up. We catch up at NAB in New York, NAB in Las Vegas.
Every show.
You guys always have news to share. I'm excited to hear what's going on.
Yep.
What's the biggest news coming out of New York for you guys? I know that you have a partnership announcement that you want to talk a little bit about.
We're partnered with Nvidia at the booth just because the two of us specialize in on-prem edge infrastructure. But it's an interesting story between the Nvidia AI side as well as the GPU rendering for virtual productions or game engines. And Nvidia also has an entry in the ST2110 sweepstakes that takes their RiverMax SDK and turns a network card into a video display card by shooting the video signal out ST2110 either to a dedicated plasma display type receiver or a software receiver on a workstation.
Do we want to talk virtual production or do we want to talk AI as far as
It's so interesting. Now that we're sharing this booth here at NAB New York, we also did at IBC and at NAB in Vegas because we have a lot in common with Nvidia. And obviously AI, and especially generative AI, is all over the news these days. And Nvidia, as well as Dell, have a bunch of announcements in terms of big 8-way GPU servers for creating these large language models from scratch in the AI world. But as well, you can take that GPU infrastructure and use it as a render farm for classic VFX or as a staging ground for virtual productions or game development. So it's interesting that these GPUs can be repurposed a number of ways. We're even showing with precision workstations how you can stick two GPUs in a workstation and use that for AI inferencing at runtime, so to speak, not the big training effort that can take months sometimes.
Here in New York, I've seen quite a few virtual production stages coming online, but it isn't a single point solution. There's a lot of components that come into it. Can you talk about, are you working specifically with any of the other providers to create turnkey solutions or just from a recommendation standpoint?
Because we're Dell, we work with everybody, and we are the underlying infrastructure for a lot of those best-of-breed solutions, where you'll have a couple servers, a couple GPU boxes, a couple workstations, a bunch of, 3 different overlay sync signals. It's really hard to put together for some of these virtual production configurations. But we obviously on the server and storage and networking side work with everybody, even the software vendors such as Perforce that provide the source code management systems for game development. It's all interrelated, and different combinations of Dell on the client side and on the server side are used for all of these infrastructure deployments.
We were talking a little bit offline about the Nvidia GPUs and how there are so many different processes that they're responsible for in a virtual production scenario. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Virtual production has maybe 3 basic areas, and I mentioned the complicated sync system between camera trackers, game engines, and actual cameras interacting with actors. But there's also the ability that you have to fit the whole virtual production scene, the 3D world, into the memory involved in one GPU. We have this way with a newer type of linking technology that allows 2 GPUs to work as one. But for the biggest possible big iron GPU solution, Dell has the HGX, which is an 8-way GPU server based on 2 Intel Sapphire Rapids processors and 8 of these Nvidia H100 GPUs. And that's a real monster, but it renders like faster than anything I've seen.
Wow, that brings us to the server side of your business. You've got some server news that you want to maybe debut right here?
Yeah, Dell has totally announced the R16 line of servers in the various modes, whether that's an edge mode, whether that's a 1U pizza box for classic VFX one frame at a time rendering. I mentioned the big 8-way GPU servers. We also have a bunch of OEM and custom like telco versions for DC power and low heat and constrained environments and things like that. But all of the R16 Dell servers specialize in the new PCIe 5 bus, so you double the amount of bus bandwidth that you get, and you do things like having DDR5 memory, so that there's way more ports from the CPU through the bus to the memory to the network card or any kind of I/O interface. And it just basically is twice the speed of the previous generation. Mm-hmm. That affects directly things like Isilon PowerScale storage, because in our all-flash versions of PowerScale, we run on 3 Dell servers, or 5, or 200, or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So when there is an opportunity to boost the hardware, we get the advantage of it on the storage. But as well, our 951FS, the OS of our Isilon PowerScale storage, there are software performance improvements as well as hardware performance improvements in PowerScale.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to throw this out there. I mean, we're in October here. NAB is April next year. I don't know if you can talk that far in advance, but do you see trends leaning towards 2024? Obviously, virtual production,
yep.
AI, those are 2 obvious ones right there that you've touched on. Anything else of interest that you guys are kind of recognizing either for the show or in the upcoming months?
From the infrastructure point of view, all flash is now getting cheap enough and dense enough that all of your on-prem workflows can be all flash based.
Wow.
We still like object stores for that massive scale of hundreds of billions of media assets. Mm-hmm. And the data management between object and file or cloud to ground, people talk about it different ways, hybrid cloud workflows. The data management is the biggest issue, and right now there's 15 different companies, all with tremendous innovation in that data management between object and file in that space. I anticipate we'll see some consolidation, mm-hmm. and we will see the adoption of a unified control plane. Because right now you have to have your Amazon console if you're doing cloud stuff in AWS. You have to have your on-prem console for legacy stuff that you've got on-prem. You might have stuff in an Equinix colo, and so Equinix has a really robust suite of tools to manage and monitor that stuff. So 3 different consoles are going to start. You're going to see those all consolidating into a universal control plane.
Great. Well, Tom, I want to thank you for once again stopping by, giving us your insight. You have a lot of value that you like to share with our audience, and I always appreciate catching up with you. So thanks again.
Thank you.